Okay guys, so in this lesson we're going to be talking about solving and graphing linear inequalities. So there's a few rules to remember, so pay attention to these rules because they're actually pretty important for you to be able to solve these problems. So an inequality, first of all, what it is compared to an equation means equal sign. So typically we have equal signs for an equation. And an inequality, we do not have that. We have four situations. We can have this symbol, this symbol, this symbol, or this symbol, which means first one is less than. This symbol means greater than. This is less than or equal to. Notice that this one actually has a line under it. And then greater than or equal to, which also has a line under it. How the heck do we know which one's which? So one little trick to know about trying to figure out which one's less than, which one's greater than is the one that looks like a capital L that's squeezed. So if you think of capital L and you squeeze it really, really hard on both ends, it turns into this symbol, which is actually the less than. So if you're trying to figure out which is a cool way to remember which is which. So less than is this symbol, greater than is this symbol. The one with the line under it will be less than or equal to, or this will be opposite, which is greater than or equal to. Okay, now that we have that, the symbols worked out, there are a few rules for graphing inequalities. So basically the rules to remember are, if we have the less than or greater than symbol, as in they do not have the line under it, that means we're going to have an open circle, which means we're not including that specific number. Meaning that all the solutions could be either above or below that number, but it's not including that number. Same thing for the inequality situation in which we have the less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. We're going to have a closed circle. Closed circle means we are actually including that number, versus the open circle means that we're not including that specific number. So that's one of the things we need to remember for graphing. Also, when we graph in a number line, we have to know which way to shade in the number line or which way to draw our arrow in the number line. Some people call the inequalities, another way to call them is like Pac-Man, or some people use the alligator. So I don't know, just to be safe, I use both. So typically the rule is if the alligator eats the variable, we're going to always shade to the right side. So if the Pac-Man or alligator, so I just drew both just to make it clear. So the Pac-Man or alligator eats the variable, we shade to the right. Remember that. And then you also have to know these rules, which is when do we use a closed circle, when do we use an open circle. Just remember that if we have the little line under it, it's going to be a closed circle. It doesn't have the line under it, we're going to have an open circle. Okay, so if you remember this, you'll be cool for graphing. You'll be good. Now, when it comes to solving, there's only one rule for solving. The rule for solving is when you have an equation and you're trying to solve it, typically we know how to solve equations by now. But when we have an inequality, we have to remember this specific rule. If we multiply or divide the inequality by a negative number, then the inequality is going to switch direction. So when we multiply or divide by a negative, key here is negative, the inequality is going to switch. And then we'll do some examples right now to kind of get you guys to know what the heck that actually means. So the first ones we're going to be doing are basically just graphing. So let me get this out of the way. So we're going to do some graphing examples right now. So how do we graph these inequalities? I put 4 different graphs there for you guys so you can see 4 different situations which we might have to solve. So example number 1, it says graph n is less than or equal to 5. Okay, so first of all, we have to know, are we going to have an open or a closed circle? Well, in this case, the little line is under the inequality, so it's going to be a closed circle because the line is under it. So I go to the 5 on the number line. I'm going to make a circle, and I'm going to make the circle closed, as in shaded in, meaning that we're actually including the 5 as well. So the 5 is part of our solution. All right, second question. Is the alligator eating the variable? Or the Pac-Man, however you want to call it. In this case, the answer is no. Since the alligator or the Pac-Man is not eating the variable, we shade to the left. So that would mean we're shading this way. Okay, so when the alligator or Pac-Man is eating the variable, we shade to the right. When it's not, we shade to the left. In this case, we shade to the left. Example number 2. Graph k is less than -3. Okay, so we go to the -3, which is right there. Do we have the little line under it? Well, the answer in this case is no. So we don't have the little line under it. That means that we're not including that number. So we're going to put an open circle at the -3. Second question, do we shade right or do we shade left? Well, is the alligator eating the variable? No, the answer is no again. So we shade to the left. So the little arrow should be pointing to the left. All of our solutions will be on the left-hand side. Basically what this means is that all of the values of k which are less than negative 3 would work, but not negative 3. On example number 1, that means all the values that are less than 5 would work, but also 5. 5 actually is part of the solutions. Okay? That being said, example number 3, so we're actually going to have a closed circle at the 2, because we have the little line under it this time, and then this time we're going to be shading to the right. We're shading to the right because it's actually eating the variable this time. So there we go. Last one, we're going to have an open circle at the 1, so open circle, and it's eating the variable, so we shade to the right. All right, so if you guys can manage remembering those two situations, so when do we have an open, when do we have a closed circle, that has to do with the little line under it or not, and then when do we shade to the right, when do we shade to the left? If it's eating the variable, it's to the right. If it's not eating the variable, it's to the left. Okay, moving on to some harder stuff. In these problems, we're actually going to have to solve and then graph the inequality. If you remember the rule for solving, which I showed you guys earlier, when you divide by a negative number in an inequality, or multiply both sides by a negative number when you're trying to solve an inequality, then the inequality is going to switch directions. So key here is that we will switch the direction if we divide by a negative. Let's try some examples. So example number 5, 6, and 7 will be the last ones for this lesson. So example number 5. Let's say we want to solve this, right? We'll solve and graph. So we make the wall, line down the inequality. We got to get the x by itself. So we're going to do minus 5 on both sides. Minus 5, minus 5. The left-hand side cancels. The left-hand side, we're only left with 2x. On the right-hand side, we're going to be left with 15 minus 5, which is 10. Okay, and then this was a less than symbol. So we're there. Now we want to get rid of the 2. So in order to get rid of the 2, we have to divide both sides by 2. Divide this, divide this. So on the left-hand side, the 2's cancel out. I'm left with just x. On the right-hand side, I get 10 divided by 2, which is 5. All right, that's all well and dandy. So did we divide by a negative? Yes or no? In this case, the answer is no. We divided by a positive 2. So when we divide both sides of the inequality by a positive, nothing changes. So this case, nothing special happens. So no switch. Basically, the inequality that we started off with is going to be the inequality that we're going to end with, which means that the final answer will be x is less than 5. Now, if you remember how to graph this, well, let's do this real quick. So we're going to have a 5, 6, 4, whatever. It's going to be an open circle at the 5, and then we're going to be shading to the left. Done. Okay, let's try the next one. So we want to solve and graph the inequality. So first thing we need to do is distributive property. We multiply everything by the 2 on the outside. In this case, we have negative 6x, and then positive 10 is less than 22. Okay, so let's try to get the x by itself. Draw the wall, subtract 10 on both sides. On the left-hand side, I get negative 6x. This goes away. On the right-hand side, I get 12. Now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6. Divide this by negative 6. Divide this by negative 6. So I get x on this side. On this side, I get negative 2. However, this situation is special because we actually divided by a negative 6. When we divide by everything that's in front of the x, we'll divide by the negative as well. So in this case, we're going to have to switch the inequality, meaning that since we started off with the less than symbol in the beginning of the problem, now it's going to become into a greater than symbol. So we switch this, and this will be our final answer. So all we have to do now is graph this. Again, we have negative 2. We need numbers that are less than negative 2, so more negative. That would be negative 3, negative 4. We need numbers that are more bigger than negative 2, which are less negative, which is negative 1 and 0. So if I want to graph that, I will put an open circle, an open circle at the negative 2, because we don't have the little line under it. And then in this case, the alligator or the Pac-Man, it's eating the variables, so we shade to the right, just like the first examples that we did. Cool, and we're down to our last one. So the last one is example number 7. 4x plus 4 is less than or equal to 2x plus 12. The only reason why I give you this example is because we have variables on both sides, and I want you guys to remember how to do those. So move the smallest variable. In this case, that'll be this guy. So subtract 2x on both sides. Cool. On this side, we have 2x. On this side, drop the 4. This becomes, that goes away, so it's just 12. Okay, so the point of this is we want to get the x by itself. So we've done these problems before. We have to subtract 4 on both sides, so minus 4 minus 4. This goes away, we're left with 2x is less than or equal to 12 minus 4 is 8. So we get 2x is less than or equal to 8. Then we got to get the x by itself, so we divide this side by 2, divide this side by 2. Okay, let's ask ourselves, did we divide by negative? No, we didn't. So in this case, just like the example number 5 that we did, there's no change. So the inequality that we started off is the inequality that we're going to end up with. So the final answer will be x is less than or equal to positive 4. So this will be your final answer. And if you guys wanted to graph this, well, we've done this many times in this particular set of examples. So we're going to do a number line. 4 will be right in the middle. Bigger numbers 5, 6. Smaller numbers 3, 2. We're going to actually have a closed circle because we have the little line under it at the 4. And then in this case, is it eating the variable? Nope, no it's not. So we do not shade to the right, we actually shade to the left. And we are done. So I hopefully this video helped out. Good luck guys, see you on the next one.